I think it's helpful in our conversation about why it's important to evolve, and especially in the context of sustainability. We want to think in terms of, well, what can we do that's different than, pushing our tithing funding model on people, and certainly if that works for you, I'm not advocating not doing it. I'm just trying to help everybody understand that in the minister-centric model of ministry, tithing is problematic because it's all branded to tithe to where you're spiritually fed. And so it's easier for people to be in the question, well, I'm wondering if I'm spiritually fed today, and therefore looking outside of themselves for evidence, either of their own worth or the ministry's worth in their own personal life. And so we set up, by virtue of that practice alone, some unintended consequences. And then when that's exacerbated by the sense of not enough, and then when we try to throw out more prosperity courses out at the not enough, we just make it worse. So as we think about, okay, well, how can we create a different funding model to fund our churches? Not only do we have to change our ministry practice in order for it to be funded differently, but we have to kind of understand there has to be a different context for how we seek to fund the church, because our conditioning is that we deal with not enough by trying to get more. And that has us looking outside of ourselves. And we have to be able to work through the discomfort and frustration. If you're not allowed to get more, what are you left with? Well, you're left with being more. I mean, that's sort of what you have to kind of develop. You have to begin to now, how can I develop a dimension of myself? How can I activate that dimension in me that can interact with the field of infinite possibilities and begin to draw into our life a greater expression of what we know is possible? And so what if the new funding model is built around, not around whether or not if people feel okay about things, but let's build our new funding model about whether or not a person's life is transformed, whether or not they feel like they've had an awakening or a breakthrough or an epiphany or something that has moved them into a way that has empowered them. So they're no longer looking at us as being source, but they discover that they are source and that they give from that place. And that we create a value system around owning what we're trying to create together, owning that our effort is all about doing what we can do. And when we make everyone's effort equal in that context, then the issue is whether or not we're each as an individual in integrity with doing what we can do, as opposed to doing what we're doing. And so when you build a new paradigm of ministry on the maturity of the congregation, you better have a system that matures your community, because you won't get there otherwise. And so now if we have a new funding model that's built around the value of ownership and partnering, the leadership partnering with the community of owners, now we have to create a system that brings that new value system online. And what better system than our membership process? But a membership process that doesn't facilitate cultural evolution is worthless, as far as I'm concerned. And that's what our current membership process is in New Thought. It doesn't do anything to evolve our churches, nor does it do anything to improve our funding. But what if the membership system was the delivery system for the funding model? And so as you begin to imagine what's possible when we have a different context for how to do ministry, there's different energy. And so if you're not about trying to get more, then you're in the effort to try to create a ministry practice where being more is the context for doing what one can in the presence of the legitimate needs of the organization. And you don't have to push this, tithe to us because, we're your source of spiritual nourishment. And you don't have to do that. You don't have to ask people for more money. You just have to grow the integrity of people's relationship to the organization. And that's a different skill set. We don't have board training that teaches us how to do those things. And that's why I'm wanting us to learn a different ministry practice. And that's why I'm wanting these kinds of conversations to trigger some kind of a collective tipping point in the New Thought movement where we get on this evolutionary journey, because time is running out.